estamos começando o nosso 5º e último dia de Rio2C Alive. Hoje, durante o dia, a gente ainda tem muita coisa bacana, são 7 painéis incríveis, então fique ligado. E eu queria, obviamente, falar um pouquinho do que foi essa semana, essa maratona de conteúdo que começa a chegar ao fim. No total, vão ser 35 painéis, mais de 100 palestrantes de vários cantos do mundo e cerca de 30 horas de conteúdo. O Rio2C, como é de conhecimento de todos, teve sua edição de 2020 adiada em função da atual pandemia e, como muitas outras empresas, fomos duramente atingidos por essa crise. Mas a gente conseguiu enxergar que era necessário manter o propósito do nosso projeto vivo. Então, contando com a parceria, garra, engajamento sem igual da nossa equipe incrível, os nossos parceiros, e eu gostaria, mais uma vez, de fazer um agradecimento especial ao YouTube, que viabilizou esse projeto, a gente conseguiu colocar o Rio2C Alive em tempo recorde de pé, com o mesmo cuidado e excelência da curadoria do nosso evento físico presencial. Então, acho que a gente, ao longo dessa semana, cumpriu a nossa missão de manter a indústria criativa conectada, informada e inspirada. Hoje a gente termina a conferência digital, mas ao longo das próximas 3 semanas, agora de maio, a gente ainda tem o mercado virtual, onde vamos estar conectando produtoras com distribuidores, plataformas, canais, assim como startups e investidores. O Rio2C agradece a audiência de vocês e a gente espera que isso tudo passe o mais rápido possível para que a gente possa estar junto de novo no Rio2C, aí sim, presencial. Obrigado, aproveitem o dia de hoje e não percam, ao final da nossa programação, uma surpresa especial que a Orquestra Petrobras Sinfônica fez para vocês. Obrigado, aproveitem o dia.
Olá, eu sou a Camila Perlingeiro, da Mapalab, e junto com a Ana Paula Costa e a Marta Ribas, nós somos as curadoras do Story Village, a área dedicada à literatura e ao mercado editorial no Rio2C. Estamos muito felizes com a realização do Rio2C Alive. Em nome de todos, gostaríamos de agradecer a presença de todos vocês que estão aqui nos assistindo. E é com muito orgulho que eu apresento o painel O Futuro do Mercado Editorial. Hoje eu converso com a Chief Digital Officer e CEO internacional de língua estrangeira da editora HarperCollins, Chantal Restivo-Alessi, sobre o futuro do mercado editorial e, por que não, também um pouco do futuro do livro. A gente quer levantar algumas questões. Como o mercado editorial global está se estruturando em meio às mudanças impostas pela pandemia? Já podemos falar de tendências comportamentais dos consumidores de livros após o isolamento? São várias e relevantes as perguntas. Eu acho que a gente vai sair daqui com algumas respostas assim menos nebulosas. Eu queria avisar a todos vocês que estão nos acompanhando que esse painel vai acontecer somente em inglês. Mas a gente tem legenda e elas podem ser ativadas aqui no canal. É só você selecionar o seu idioma. Tá? Vamos começar então? Chantal, thank you very much for being here with us. I am very curious to hear your thoughts on what's going on in the book industry worldwide. And I would like to start by asking exactly this. How is the international book industry facing the coronavirus pandemic as of this moment?
Well, obviously, these are very challenging times for everyone, including our industry. But I think the interesting thing and the great thing about publishing is that it's really an adaptive industry. And even in these difficult times, the industry and our company in particular is adapting and changing along what's happening. So one of I think and we will go into detail a little bit more. But I think one of the interesting things in particular about Harper is how we work, is also how we tackle this pandemic. So obviously every market is facing unique local conditions, but because it's a global pandemic, some things are global or similar. So it is actually the same way we work every day with our books, in that we share experiences globally and best practices. So we tell each other the good learnings and the difficult learnings from each market, while at the same time we tackle the situations on a local basis. So it's a combination of local and global, which has been actually very helpful for us as a company, because it gives the benefit of feeling part of a whole, and also of getting the information maybe from markets that are ahead of the experience and ahead of the curve. And frankly, I feel if governments worked the same way, we would be in a better place.
Oh yeah, definitely. And how is the world dealing, especially in your company that you deal with different markets and different countries? How is the world dealing with new releases, upcoming mega sellers, book launches, when we can't or shouldn't leave the safety of our homes?
Yeah, I think that's one of the examples where I feel the industry has been really great at innovating fast. We're obviously using much more digital platforms and virtual events, especially in the US, but not only. And obviously, we're also benefiting from social media a lot. So it's really a combination of replacing some of the in-person events with virtual events, but then also benefiting from the great opportunity that platforms, and especially digital platforms and also digital retailers, offer in terms of marketing and of reach that some of the authors might have. And the authors have been exceptional and fantastic. They really embrace the opportunity to help consumers, spend their time. They've engaged themselves in reading activities online, in supporting activities, and even fun activities. Some of them have done funny videos, really understanding how tough it is for consumers to be at home, but also how nice it is to see, sometimes to even see, we're all curious to see where they live, how they live, peek into their lives. So it's actually made them even more approachable, and made our events, actually more interesting.
Yeah, I always say that, like, when you have authors engaging with their audience, it makes them more human, instead of this entity that we don't know about, right? That like we just read their books, but we don't know anything about them.
Yeah,
do you think that you
can just one more thing. It's a little bit like, obviously we have also been working a lot, like we are doing now, with visual help. And it's funny to see, for example, like in my case, occasionally you get my cat walking all over the screen. The same happens with some authors, or you hear their dogs barking or whatever. There are also some funny moments. And, and pets have become part of the, part of the scenery and part of what makes them human.
Yes. And do you think you can achieve the same success with these books, like not only in terms of sales, but like marketing and everything? Do you think that you can never leave your house, like you can never work differently ever again? Do you think that this is the best way to work?
I think no, I think human touch is important, and human relationship and physical relationships are important. But I do think that this way of working, also in marketing, will become more integrated in the way we work. I think it actually increases the reach for an author, and frankly democratizes the access to an author, because not everyone was able to tour, or not every little town would be able to be touched, or every country would be able to receive an author. And I think this way it has shown that, it is possible. And so the combination, I think, will persist. I don't think it will replace, but I think it has shown us and has shown the talent and the authors that it is possible to do and to engage consumers. So I think it will be a complementary tool for us. And it's a welcome tool, especially for myself, because having to deal with international, as I said, touring, especially traveling internationally, is often quite expensive and also time consuming. And for authors, it's always been a struggle, to be able to do both writing and marketing at the same time. And they rightly so prioritize writing, and also rightly so the prioritize bigger markets and bigger opportunities. But this way we can actually help them reach more people across the world. And I think that's also obviously always been an objective for our company. The way we set ourselves up for international and global is to really optimize their social media opportunities and now also their virtual events opportunities, so that whenever they do something in one place, we make sure we activate and we tell consumers everywhere in the world where their fans might be that event is happening, or that Facebook Live is happening, or whatever it is that's happening. So I think it's really going to be a great additional way for authors and for ourselves to market to consumers, and for consumers who did not have an opportunity in the past to be closer to their favorite authors.
Now I would like to talk about sales. A quarter of the world is currently at home, and bookstores everywhere are closed. Do you think big online players such as Amazon and other marketplaces became a solution for publishers, also independent bookstores that use their marketplaces, while we are all facing a pandemic? Or is it the beginning of the end of the book market as we know it?
I never think it's the beginning of the end. I always think it's the beginning of a different future. I do think that obviously online retailers, whether they're Amazon or other companies, it depends on the markets, have been an incredible solution and have offered really an incredible solution for publishers to reach consumers at a time that was really hard. And when independent stores and also chains were closed or still closed in many places. However, I have also seen a couple of other things. I've seen independent retailers, especially in the US, adapt already and set up their own e-commerce capabilities through third parties. I've seen mass merchants, both in the US and in other countries, start offering e-commerce more and books more in e-commerce, or even curbside pickups. So I think the world is adapting. And while in the beginning, it looked like the e-commerce retailers that were already in the business, obviously were the ones ready to adapt to this new world. I think other channels are adapting as well. And I also see, obviously, and we'll talk about it maybe later as well, but obviously the digital platforms have also been growing in their activities. So really, I think I expect a little bit like with marketing, I think this has accelerated some trends, obviously the e-commerce trends, but I think what's happening is that existing channels have incorporated or starting to incorporate e-commerce more in their day-to-day offering to consumers, the smarter ones, the more adaptable ones. And therefore, I actually think it will offer the likes of Amazon more competition in the medium term.
Yeah, definitely. And do you also think, like, for independent publishers specifically, we have a rather large independent publishing industry in Brazil, and do you think it's going to be much harder for them? Do you think, like, globally independent publishers are also adapting and setting up their e-commerces and marketing practices, like rushing to be more online maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think doesn't necessarily mean scale. You know, it's pretty easy to set up your store, frankly, these days with tools like Shopify. I mean, you don't need to be a super mega, it's not expensive anymore, super mega company. And the tools we use are pretty standard, and whether we're selling to Amazon or whether we sell to a marketplace, the metadata is the same. You know, so I don't really think that there's a huge barrier in terms of scale, and everyone can set up an account on a marketplace, whether it's called Amazon or B2W, I think in Brazil. So I think it's really more a question of mentality and adaptability. So I can't speak, obviously, to smaller independent, you know, publishers in Brazil, but I think it's really more a matter of their willingness to adjust rather than a matter of scale. And I think that's true, again, what I observe also in the US, you know, whether it's an independent retailer, there's some that have adapted and some that haven't, but that's really not a matter of scale.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking before about not just books, but different platforms. Mm-hmm. So ebooks weren't worldwide, you know, making big waves before the pandemic. The market share was varying between 5 and 20%. Do you think readers are consuming more ebooks during this time? And do you think this will be a permanent change, maybe?
Yeah, so I think that, yes. So ebook had kind of plateaued, at least in more advanced markets. And yes, I absolutely, we're seeing growth of ebooks everywhere, and clearly that's a case of access, right? So it's, although, you know, e-commerce platforms may be delivering print books, sometimes they're delayed. So if you want to have an immediate impact, you're going to try to get an ebook. And I do think that it's opening up, you know, the format to additional consumers, you know, consumers who may not have experienced that format before. And it's clear that it's also opening it up to certain genres that were less digital in the past. In particular, I'm thinking about children's space. You know, there's many more children's books that we're seeing are being consumed in digital form. And I think that is creating actually a bigger future for ebooks, because if parents and children become more adjusted to the digital format as a complementary, you know, again, I don't think that digital will replace print. I think print, you know, been now in this industry for 8 years, in spite of being
yes, exactly. That's a conversation that's been in the past.
Yeah, finally. So I don't think it's that, but I do think there is an opportunity for digital to, you know, to increase its share in genres or in areas where it was not that present in the past. And as I say, children is definitely one of the categories where we see right now a bigger consumption of digital, but I think once people get used to it and comfortable with their kids consuming a book also, you know, on a screen, I think that will stay with the kids and with the parents.
Yeah, do you think, well, I'm a parent of a 9-year-old myself, and she's very digital, and she's always, you know, iPads, iPhones. Now she's with you know, homeschooling, and so, but like my mom said, do you want to buy her a Kindle? And I was like, I don't think so. I want her to, you know, just like to read books first. You know, I don't care. Like, she's gonna be a teenager reading ebooks. It's okay, but I want her to feel the power of holding a book in her hands first. Like she I mean, she still reads a little bit of illustrated books, but she's already in the Harry Potter and like pre-teen twin things. And I don't, like, I'm resisting, and I'm a publisher who reads a lot of ebooks, a lot, like much more than print today, which is ridiculous. But but do you think parents everywhere still resist the idea of having their younger children, like 10 and under, consume ebooks instead of print?
Yes, I mean, based on our research before COVID, I'd say yes, that was one of the issues. And I think it was, like you, they wanted their kids to have the physical experience, which is totally fine. And additionally, you know, there was a concern with the screen of like already too much screen time, and
Exactly.
the inability to control what is it that they're doing on the screen, right? So sometimes parents feel overwhelmed and not sure about how to control that, and is the kid really reading a book or something else? However, I think because of the pandemic and because of the inability to access as quickly books, and also because of the need for parents to really keep the kids engaged, you know, it's really tiring for parents are the ones that probably are having the toughest time with the lockdowns. Again, based on the research we're seeing is, you know, after you've done the homeschooling, you're exhausted, you want your kid to, you know, leave you in peace, and between gaming and reading, you know, they're actually happier if the kids reads an ebook. So, you know, so I think it's that's happening. You know, all the research we're seeing shows that, well, a couple of things. I mean, it shows that actually kids are reading more as one of their activities, as they're also watching more video and playing more games. So don't get me wrong, right? Because they have all this time to occupy. And but that also parents are more willing to have their kids exposed to the digital formats, because as I said, you know, it's like, oh my God, at least I'm going to keep my kid engaged with something that I'm approving of. And so I think once this period goes over, not everyone will stay with that, but I think the positive experience will stay with people. And the other thing that we're observing is it's actually not just digital. I think in general, which is really encouraging for the industry in this lockdown period, people are saying, even in Brazil, you know, 20% on average reading more, right? So they're sitting at home and they're actually reading more. And it kind of almost goes in waves, where initially they're really obsessed with the news, but after a while, the news are so upsetting or, you know, stressful and create anxiety that people want to have some escape time. And reading is becoming one of those nice escape times where, you know, and also family times, back to the point of reading with your family, with your kids. So reading in general, whether it's in digital form or physical form, is actually taking more space in the activities at home, which is great for the future of the industry overall. You know, yes, we're all suffering right now. Yes, the supply chains are challenged, but reading as an activity is becoming more prevalent. And I think because of the positivity of it, it will stay with kids, which is the most important thing, because they're the consumers of our future.
Yes, definitely. Well, we were talking about ebooks before, but I would love to hear your thoughts on audiobooks. Here in Brazil, we are still on, you know, baby steps, and also in a lot of countries. So how do you see audio content being created and released right now? Do you think it's going to also become a broader audience because of lockdown, or even just because the world is changing?
Yeah, so audio is quite interesting because, first of all, yes, I'm a strong believer in audio. I think we were seeing really strong growth in the US, I mean, frankly, in every market before COVID, you know, really strong double-digit growth. Obviously, some market from a much smaller base. But I think what was happening and will continue to happen is that the production costs are coming down significantly. And so I think as a result of that, catalogs are becoming more available, you know, broader selection, and broader selection is leading to more consumers and more mass market, right? Before it was a more reduced market for specialists or, you know, early adopters, and now it's becoming much more mass market everywhere, I believe. And it's a combination of the availability of interesting content, and also frankly the access, right? So the mobile phone is available pretty much to every one of us anywhere in the world, and I think the audio format is particularly conducive to be consumed on mobile phones much more than the ebook, because, you know, frankly, the ebook is just too small to read, and you go half blind especially if you're my age, you know, it's like you can't really see it. So I think as a result, you know, consumers who want, you know, they're constantly multitasking, occupying their times while they're commuting, etc. So So I think what's happened, and then with COVID, actually, I think it's interesting because in the initial phase, it varies by market again. Like I think in the US, because it's a very heavy commuter market, we've seen a decrease in audio initially, but now it's coming back up. So I think initially when people were, not commuting anymore, they stopped their use, but they're returning to the audio market now that things are more stable and they're just getting used to their daily routine. So as a result, and whereas in other markets, let's take the UK, it's continued to grow. So I really think it will continue to grow. It's an exciting format. It's a complementary format. Again, I think, if you look at storytelling, there's always been audio, right? Storytelling was first done, by people who were telling stories to each other. So I think that's the beauty of audio. It's always been part of our culture, and it just gives us the opportunity to do more things with a story. And we will see a lot more innovation in audio as well, I think, in terms of different kinds, original, shorter content, all sorts of things that will be complementary or incremental to what we already do with print and with So I'm absolutely a believer of audio, and I think it's a great opportunity to bring stories to consumers who maybe have difficulties reading, for many reasons, and actually, so we're actually reaching an additional set of consumers that we were not reaching, basically non-readers.
Do you think that audio, and like this is a personal curiosity actually, do you think audio contributed to turn ebooks not obsolete, but like to maybe compete with them? Do you think the two digital formats compete with each other, and that's why ebooks had a rougher time in the past years?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think the audio consumers are really different. And the type of books that do well in audio tend to be different from the types of books that do well in ebook. So I don't think they're competitive formats. Obviously, in some cases you have an audiobook do better than the ebook format. Absolutely. It tends to be things like, self-help or with big personalities where you would really like to hear their opinion and their voice. The closer you are to a podcast experience, the better the audio does versus the ebook. It comes back to the point you said before, which is you feel closer to the author when you hear their voice, if it's an author that's telling his personal experience, right? So I think that there are definitely books that do better in audio than they do in ebook, but I don't think they're necessarily competing formats. I think what happened to the ebook is that I think I think the print book is what people really want, right? Really. I mean, I really think people love, which is great. People love the physical book, and the physical book has value in its physicality. It's a beautiful object. It's a nice object you are proud of. Look at us. And both you and I have libraries behind us, right? We like to show them off. We like to show people. They're part of who we are. They're part of showing others of what we're interested in. So the digital format cannot do that. So the digital format is much more practical element, right? You're traveling or you're consuming a lot, and you're doing that on books that you're not so proud maybe of showing on your shelves. So it's a different thing. It's maybe for your guilty pleasures. Fine. So again, I think everything has a purpose and everything is here to coexist. And I think the slowdown in ebook was partly driven also by the change in pricing in some markets, where the more mass market end was the part that was doing better in ebooks. And once the pricing became less compelling for consumers, the consumption went back to print. Because it was like, well, if I don't see the great opportunity on price-wise, then I'm just going to stick with print. It's not that compelling a format on its own, right? So I think that's really, but I think all of these are great complementary offers, and the consumer can choose. And really what we do as a publisher and is support the author on their stories and selling the title. And then the format just becomes an offer for consumer, and the consumer can choose, depending on the moment or the genre, what is it that they want most. So I think our job as publishers is to help the authors be as present as possible in as many formats as possible, and also in as many channels as possible. I've said that many years, that is our job. And obviously doing so in a way that's protecting the value of the content they create. But our job is really to make sure that everyone knows about them and everyone can have access in the way that matches their desires, the demand.
Do you think readers, I think like readers are consuming more ebooks, they're consuming more audio, they are letting their kids read ebooks. Do you think the readers everywhere will change the way they consume books? Do you think like book related products as well? Do you think they will desire maybe take a chance on different genres? Since they are experimenting with content because of being locked down. So do you think this will be a permanent change?
Yeah, I don't know how much is permanent and how much is not, but I think every time that you experience something different, there is a portion of the population that has that experience that will stick with it if it's a good experience. So I think at the moment we're seeing, obviously, because of the physical limitations and also mental limitation, I think we're seeing a lot of genres in the nonfiction area that are like working, that are newish. So hobbies or cooking, easy cooking, and even cooking with kids, and a lot of kids product, gardening and limited spaces, and also everything that has to do really with resilience and mental health and how to address challenging times, but in a way that's easy to understand and comprehend, right? Because this is a moment that affects so many of us, and it's not just the intellectuals among us, it's everyone. And at the other end, I think there's a lot of escapism, so that there's a lot of really good fiction titles that make you feel good, that make you escape, that romance is doing really well right now as well. It's stuff, even I can admit, my guilty pleasure of the weekend is I don't want to hear any bad news. I just want to dream. And, it's like nice to imagine myself with a beautiful prince, especially because I'm alone here. So, it can be any of the above. And so, so I think there are some things that someone sent me a funny video this morning, actually, of accentuating all the things that people are overdoing, like baking or playing games or I don't know, exercising. And I think the beauty of publishing is that, frankly, whatever character you are, like whatever you're overdoing at home right now, there is a book that goes with it. So if you don't know how to cook like me and you're completely lost.
Well, if you're burning pans like I am, I already went through 2 of them. I'm actually buying more pans today because I don't have them anymore.
I did the same. Mine arrived yesterday. I swear. So the partners in crime. So I burned the pot and I ordered both the pan and the book just to make sure that I could handle the next few weeks of home cooking.
Yes, exactly. Like I cook. This is the worst thing that's happened. It's like I'm burning everything. I think because I've been doing so many things, multitasking all the time. So like I'm burning something while I'm washing the dishes and brushing. So my kid, like I keep saying to my child, we can't take you to the hospital. Please don't break something. Please stop running. Stop skating at home. So and I agree with you that this also translates into things that we are consuming in terms of content, like how to cook, how to do it yourself things, because you can't have people in your house. So so what are you reading? Like now I'm curious to see what you're personally reading.
Well,
during this time?
I read romance because I was like, unfortunately, my personal situation, I'm Italian and my husband is in Italy because he got stuck there, when everything went in lockdown. So I'm by myself and I'm like, okay, well, let me get some romance into my life because
Yeah, I think when you're in the house with children, and I talk to my friends all the time, like we actually don't have time to be bored because we are trying to not have them, like jump out the window or something, like the smaller they are, the more risk we have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's
but this is what I was saying before. There's a lot more that is being bought in the children's space, jokes aside, and it's not just, it's even things like, obviously there's a lot more in terms of the edutainment, so education, entertainment, because, but there's also books for parents, like they feel a little bit helpless. Not everyone is a great teacher. And so how do I engage my child, and how do I make it fun? And also activities, a lot of, obviously people are talking about the puzzles and board games, but there's also like books that relate to those activities or that are complementary. So there's really, as I said, there's a lot of choice. And I think that's really great because, as I say, people are like, yes, of course they're watching videos, and I don't want to negate that there's that too, or gaming, but when people do that, but there's also more interaction in the families from what I've read and what I hear and the research we've conducted. So, and people are looking for tools really for themselves and for the kids to make them feel like, yes, they are spending time, but it's not wasted time. It's good time that they're spending together.
So those are challenging times for all of the industries, actually. There's not going to be one of us that's not going to suffer in some point. But as you said, the book industry is very adaptable. We have this thing that we are seeing as a rather conservative market, especially in Brazil. And I think we thought, Brazilian publishers, the Brazilian industry thought every step the way ebooks, everything. I think, of course, those times are behind, but we can see here how we are all rushing to become more digital. And as someone who knows intrinsically about the digital world in the book industry, what is your advice for publishers and independent bookstores alike to survive these hard times and thrive?
So I really think, like every moment of big change. So first of all, I've looked at what happened in crisis before and how did, the publishing industry react. And actually, even, big recession times like 2008, at the end of it, in 2009, the industry grew, at least in the US, right? So maybe in other markets, it took a little bit longer. But I think the industry is resilient and adaptable. I actually think that the industry never talks about itself enough. I really, when I joined this industry, I thought, why are they all so negative? They've done incredible. And they are adaptable, and it has embraced digital, maybe in some places less than others, but it has embraced it better than music, frankly, because I worked in music at the beginning of digital and it was a disaster. So I do think that the industry doesn't talk enough about what it does, and it's still, the perception is that it's this this slow changing, old-fashioned industry, when actually I don't think it is. I do think that this crisis is demonstrating it one more time because, at least my company, I can't speak for everyone, we have been adopting tools very quickly, and I think it's leading, and it will lead for the ones that are willing to embrace it. So my advice would be embrace it and see it as an opportunity rather, obviously it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. So see it as an opportunity for the future to make the changes happen that, frankly, as a digital person, I said the other day, I'm so excited because some of the things I've been preaching them for years and people were resistant to change. Virtual events is one of the examples. Digital galleys is another example. There's lots of opportunities to run our businesses more efficiently, but also, as I said before, not just efficiencies, but also better marketing opportunity, bigger reach, the ability to make our content available to people that where before it wasn't. And I also, I'm really proud to be in this industry. It has such a purpose, and everyone, I think, from authors to institutions, have tried to be close to consumers. And I don't think that consumers will forget that. I think clearly they're discovering what's important and what's essential. And I think reading and books are part of that. And I think because we're all part of supporting them, they will remember that.
There's something that, right after we started our lockdown, a lot of authors, a lot of publishers decided to do, just to give back to their readers. And they started giving free audiobooks, free ebooks. I know, like some publishers started doing like buying, just selling vouchers so they could buy the books later in their favorite bookstore for half price, or small actions that gave back to their public. And did you do something like this, like globally? And do you think that this will, I don't think people were doing this for profit, or not even for market. It was just like everybody was scared and tense and just trying to survive. The first few weeks, at least, I think we're more adapted now. I mean, not all of us. We're like both. We're all like, going a little bit crazy or adapted completely. And did you do something like this? How did this happen at Harper?
Yeah, I think it varied by country again, so we're doing some couponing and discounting and also some free activities, depending also in Brazil, but and we do it depending on the markets and also on the support the authors have provided differently in different places. And they have been, as you say, more in the beginning, but in some cases, like supporting schools, for example, in the US, we're definitely doing that. Because we have more of a school market and a school offering here. It really depends on what offers we have. So we've allowed school to use some of our content, which they'd obviously already purchased in physical form, etc. So we really try to stay alongside our partners, whether they're schools or platforms or consumers, depending on the category of product. And I'm not a believer of free, by the way. I think if you give free too much, people will think that your content has no value. But I do think that at some special moments, there is an opportunity to use it, but then you revert back to your normal pricing. So yeah. I do think you need to choose carefully what you support with free and how. And that's what we've been doing country by country and frankly, channel by channel, or type of business. And it really varies depending on the content that we sell in each country. But yes, we have been doing things like that. And again, it always comes in partnership with our authors that have been very, very generous.
Okay, I think this has been great. Actually, it's been an honor. I'm a longtime fan. So
oh, thank you.
Yes, I think we're running out of time. And I would like for you to make your last considerations, and just so we can say goodbye to our viewers.
Okay, well, my last consideration is hopefully you got my message, which is I'm an eternal optimist. I as I said, I love this industry. I think we have an immense purpose. I think as a result of what we're seeing right now, people are reading more. People are sticking with reading. They are consuming books. So as soon as the pandemic is over, I think we'll return back and probably grow even more than in the past. I'm really convinced of that. There's new habits that are starting with consumers, and also there's new habits and new ways of working that we're adopting, which is all positive in my opinion. And really will have I think, a bright future ahead of us. And so I'm very happy. And that's frankly true for Brazil as well. I know Brazil has some unique challenges, but I think you have a fantastic young population, and you have a lot of opportunities for your publishing to be successful. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you. And I hope I was useful in some sort.
So much is almost a class. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being available to us at this time.
Thank you.
I'm going to just say a quick goodbye to everyone who's viewing us. Muito obrigada, gente. Quero agradecer essa conversa. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Foi importante, acho que ouvir uma pessoa que trabalha com o mercado global dentro da nossa indústria nacional, que conhece o mercado brasileiro. E eu quero agradecer mais uma vez todos vocês estarem aqui nos vendo, e agradecer ao Rio2C também por proporcionar essa conversa excitante nesse momento difícil. Muito obrigada.